Hey everybody, it's Pure Insanity, and I have got the best full companion build to show you in this video. I'm really excited about it. I got into Season 1 just this last month, which is why the video is so late. But with the new aspects and some buffs, I was excited to start build crafting a true, full, legitimate companion build. And now, as I'm sure everybody knows, Update 1.2 is coming out alongside Season 2 with some really big changes, particularly to damage and resistance. There are many other changes, including items, skills, and the Paragan boards. In terms of classes, druids and rogues are changing the least, and there aren't any significant changes that have been listed in the patch notes that are going to impact this build. And since this build has been particularly good for leveling and speed clearing, I fully intend to start with this build as a base build for Season 2. I'll get into a little bit of the items and what I'm looking for in Season 2 along the way as well. But this build speed clears pretty much everything but Nightmare Dungeons 55 plus. So I want to start off with some of just the general endgame Helltide gameplay here. I'll talk about the speed clearing and mechanics for this style first. Then I'll get into tier 60 and 70 plus and talk about the stun locking, more distance clearing game style and mechanics in the end, so that you can work on the harder Nightmare Dungeon boards. I did want to show a quick clip showing how well this full companion build does in a Nightmare Dungeon 70 plus. This one is a 76 and the build has 80 plus potential. After this clip, I'm going to be running through screenshots of my skill tree, Paragan Board, boons, and gear. Admittedly, the gear still needs some work, but some of the other choices may seem odd, but that's what it took to get this full companion build working. It is very synergetic, and if it doesn't stand out right away, I'll be explaining throughout the video all the big factors why this works and what makes it so powerful. Landslide is the central focus and synergy of this full companion build. The subterranean aspect causes Poison Creeper to cast a ring of landslides, and since Poison Creeper immobilizes enemies, it quickly generates terremotes. With the aspect of the Aftershock, you not only get a second ring with Poison Creeper, but obviously you get a second cast when you're casting Landslide. When using all three companion skills, having Landslide and still needing a basic skill, it only leaves one more skill slot. Earthen Bulwark is a great defensive skill, but since having a stun breaker unstoppable skill is critical for survival and game, it becomes the obvious choice for the third non-companion skill. Ravens provide increased crit strike chance with synergizes, triggering Earthen Might. Ferocious Ravens also provides vulnerability with a hefty AoE damage. Wolves get a lot of criticism for being weak, however, with build focus on companion ranks and damage, they are quite powerful. Wolves also get a 25% X increase to immobilize, stunned, or poisoned enemies, which this build is effectively set up to ensure. Aspect of Quicksand causes slow from earth damage. Landslide and Earth Spike stun, and Aspect of Audacity provides another source of stun. The Neurotoxin skill slows poisoned enemies. Constricting Tendrils adds more immobilization and poison. Aspect of the Alpha buffs wolves significantly in addition to the ability to spread rabies. And finally, Aspect of Shared Misery helps ensure all crowd control is respread through mobs even if the original crowd control wears off or new enemies are added to the mobs. Aspect of the Stampede is an obvious aspect for any companion build, but with everything mentioned, this does make wolves very powerful. Another synergy to discuss is fortification. Ferocious Wolves is arguably one of the best sources of fortification, and without more defensive skills and limited healing, Ferocious Wolves is the best option. Since Poison Creeper is casting double landslides, Poison Creeper becomes another great source of fortification with the Safeguard passive, and all the landslide casts are great fortification sources with Safeguard too. Since Landslide is the only real source of non-companion damage, there's a lot of focus in the build to ensure Landslide can be continually cast as much as possible. Earthen Might fully replenishes Spirit and is regularly triggered due to its synergy with Stun and Immobilization. The next big synergy is with Lucky Hit, which should be near max value with gloves and sought for in other gear. With good enough base Lucky Hit, Energize becomes very valuable, and since the Wolf Spirit also has Pack Leader, this is where you want to place your Spirit Bonding. To go back to continual Landslide casting, as the build has massive amounts of crowd control, Aspect of the Umbral is the best choice to replenish Spirit outside of Earthen Might. You also need to make sure maximum Spirit is high enough to sustain casting between triggering Earthen Might and or low volumes of mobs. This means Ancestral Guidance, with both Spirit buffs and core skill buffs, becomes a critical Paragan board. I will provide the full Paragan boards, but it is also important to note this board is an excellent board for intelligence glyphs. This is where I have the Wilds glyph, which provides 24.8% companion damage per 5 intelligence at level 21, and I have 44 intelligence invested with a total of 217.8% companion damage. The final Landslide aspect to cover is the Shepard's aspect. With 10% X damage to core skills for each active companion, it is arguably the most powerful aspect for full companion builds. This is also why I call this companion build a legitimate full companion build, because the aspect is so powerful, you can make an entire companion build around this one aspect without really investing in companion ranks and companion damage. Companion ranks, damage, and skills are heavily leveraged in this build, hence a legitimate full companion build. And to finish off the skill tree, Venom is arguably the best passive with both Earthen Might and Poison Focus. The one catch here is dots cannot crit strike, so you're not getting bonus damage directly from Poison Creeper or Rabies or Constricting Tendrils. That said, this provides a large amount of bonus damage to Wolves, Ravens, and Landslide. Therefore, since Poison Creeper is casting Landslide, ensuring quick casts on poison enemies, there is a large amount of indirect bonus damage from Poison Creeper casts. The final aspect to cover might go without saying, but it's the aspect of Disobedience. Armor is low in this build, and as human, you do not have as many gear affixes or Paragon contributions to armor. Consequently, damage reduction affixes and Paragon glyphs that add damage reduction are very important. Getting into speed clearing game mechanics, the playstyle is super easy. Either jump into a full mob or drag as many mobs as you can together to cast Poison Creeper. Aspect of Audacity should kick off, adding a lot of bonus damage from the stun. Spam Landslide while Poison Creeper's landslides are active, and either Earthen Might should trigger to keep casting landslides, and or Pack Leader will trigger to recast Poison Creeper. Ravens and Wolves aren't really important or used much, but they're also nice to have for elites, very large mobs, and or cleaning up the last of mobs. The speed clearing game mechanics can be used for Nightmare Dungeons 55 to 70 plus, and I do tend to prefer to use it, but the odds you're going to die a couple times does rise significantly. It's close combat, so if you get stuck in a dot pool, get stun locked, or get hit by something hard like a horror corpse bow, there isn't enough defense or armor to make it out alive every time. Using the more survivable game mechanics is straightforward in standard distance strategy, but as this is a legitimate full companion build, let's cover how to use your companions. Wolves are a great front line and can draw in mobs to start casting Landslide. They're also great to draw aggro if you need to escape. From an offensive perspective, they're spreading Rabies, helping make sure to keep up bonus damage from poisoned enemies. Their active attack is also very useful and powerful against elites and bosses. Ravens do have substantial passive damage, but their main purpose is to spread vulnerability. The exploit glyph is being used, but with higher level mobs, it tends to expire for high health and elites. You can also mix up the strategies a bit by jumping into mobs at opportune moments to cast Poison Creeper, but in harder Nightmare dungeons, I will usually jump right back out and go back to casting Landslide. In Nightmare Dungeon 75 plus, I usually reserve Poison Creeper to cast on the outer edge of mobs or to immobilize enemies that got past the wolves. My favorite things about this build in harder Nightmare Dungeons is how these skills aren't heavily impacted by suppressors and wind walls. Bosses are typically very easy, and even though it's not speed clearing, you can still clear tier 70 plus Nightmare Dungeons in 10 to 15 minutes. At this point, I'm going to wrap up the video with Paragan Board screenshots and cover the 1.2 update and Season 2 notes I think are going to be good for this build. Aspect of Disobedience, max armor value is being increased from 30% to 66%, which may give this build enough armor to be effective in Nightmare Dungeons 80 plus. Damage bucket changes may improve total damage considering the various crowd control additive sources of bonus damage. Raven's damage, active and passive, is being increased along with the crit increase from 5% to 8%, helping Earthen Might trigger more quickly. Rabies damage and spread speed are increased. Fortification mounts are changing from base life to maximum life, providing substantially more fortification. And Earthen Devastation damage is increased for crowd control enemies. For the Season 2 vampiric powers, covering the minor first, Coven's Fangs is what I'm looking forward to the most. Companion damage to crowd control enemies is increased by 52%. Lucky hit chance of 30% to inflict Vampiric Curse. This will be incredibly powerful in this build and synergizes with it very well. Feed the Coven, another lucky hit, 60% to restore 10 primary resource and increase damage by 10% for 4 seconds. This may allow replacing aspect of the Umbral or the Energized Boon with a more damage focused increase. Infection, hitting enemies with direct damage, infects with pox. Wolves, Ravens, and Landslide are all direct damage, making this potentially very valuable. For the majors, Accursed Touch, lucky hit chance of 44% to inflict Vampiric Curse, and Blood Boil, an overpower based damage bonus with guaranteed overpower every 20 seconds. Already using the Overpower Spirit Boon, this may pair very well and also synergize well with the build. I will be posting a video update after 1.2 in Season 2, so either subscribe to the channel or keep a lookout for the new videos. I hope everyone enjoyed this video. If you've been looking for an endgame companion build and try this out or have any recommendations, please leave a comment with your thoughts. I'd love to read them. And I know this build isn't likely to clear a tier 100, but this is a great speed clearing build with potentially large improvements with 1.2 and Season 2. So as good and as fun as it is already, I'm very excited to start Season 2. On that note, until next time.